My girlfriend once told me, my ex still wires me $2,000 every month as payback for the emotional wreckage he caused. That's what actual men do. They provide for women. I replied, sounds like he's a real class act. A few days later, I quietly sent screenshots of their conversation to his current wife's divorce lawyer. When the courts later slashed both of their support obligations, everything made sense. I'm 35, she's 33. We met last summer at a mutual friend's wedding. I was a groomsman, she was a bridesmaid, and the bride had been trying to play matchmaker for months. Sparks flew at the reception, we swapped numbers, and soon we were officially together. The beginning was almost perfect. Amber is stunning, quick-witted, and kills it as a pharma sales rep. Sharp, ambitious, always put together. She owns a sleek condo in a trendy Denver neighborhood, rolls in a Mercedes, and never has a hair out of place. I'm a mechanical engineer who designs HVAC for big commercial projects. It's steady, decent money, nothing flashy, but I like what I do. Around the 3-month mark, I started picking up on certain patterns in how she viewed money. She never outright demanded I cover everything, but the hints were constant. My last boyfriend never let me touch the bill. Or, isn't it normal for the guy to handle dinner? I don't mind treating someone I care about, but I'm a firm believer in equal partnership, including financially. Whenever I suggested we go halves on dates or trips, she'd agree with visible disappointment. I chalked it up to differing expectations and figured we'd find common ground eventually. Then came the bombshell. One night at her place, sipping wine and planning a weekend in Aspen, I mentioned splitting the cost of a very expensive Airbnb. She got visibly irritated and said, real men take care of their women, period. I asked what she meant, and she went off on a whole speech about traditional roles and how a man proves himself by providing. My ex-husband Jake got it, she said, swirling her glass. Even now, 3 years post-divorce, he still sends me $2,000 every month. I raised an eyebrow. You're still getting alimony? She laughed. It's not court-ordered alimony. I call it compensation for emotional trauma. Apparently, when she discovered he'd cheated with his assistant, she told him she'd drag the divorce through the mud, make it public, and tell his ultra-conservative father about every other affair unless he agreed to keep supporting her indefinitely. She also threatened to feed damaging and partly fabricated stories to his business contacts. His dad owns a massive construction firm where Jake is a partner. Any scandal could have cost him his reputation and inheritance. Terrified, he caved. You're still getting money from him? I asked, keeping my voice level. Of course, she shrugged, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He married that homewrecker, and they just had a kid. His family's loaded. He doesn't even feel it. I asked whether his new wife knew. Amber rolled her eyes. God, no. He moves the money from a separate business account his wife can't see. She thinks the divorce was fully settled years ago. That's when she handed me her phone to show the text thread. Jake was begging her to let him stop. Becky's starting to ask questions about where the money keeps disappearing. We have a baby now. I need to put her first. Amber's replies were ice cold. Not my problem. We had an agreement. One phone call to your dad about those other women, and you're done. Or maybe I'll have a chat with your investors about how you really landed the Douglas deal. When she stepped away to the restroom, her phone stayed on the table, still open to the messages. I forwarded the worst exchanges to myself and deleted the evidence from her sent folder before she came back. I felt a pang of guilt for snooping, but what I read made my stomach turn. When she sat down again, I said dryly, wow, what a stand-up guy. She completely missed the sarcasm. He's not, but at least he's paying for what he did. Then she added, this is just how it works. Real men provide, even when the relationship is over. I dropped the subject and later agreed to cover the full Airbnb cost just to keep the peace. Inside, I was reeling. What she was doing wasn't emotional damages. It was straight-up blackmail. That night, I barely slept. Yeah, Jake had cheated and deserved consequences, but 3 years of secret payments that were now hurting his child and deceiving his current wife? It felt profoundly unjust. For days I debated whether to get involved. I ran the dilemma past my brother, an ethics professor, in hypothetical terms. Ultimately, picturing Jake and Becky's baby growing up shortchanged because of Amber's grudge is what pushed me over the edge. Becky deserved transparency, and their daughter deserved that money more than Amber deserved another designer handbag. I checked with a lawyer friend first. Again, all hypotheticals. She said voluntarily sharing information that was openly shown to me wasn't illegal in Colorado, as long as I didn't obtain it through hacking or deception. She recommended staying anonymous and sticking strictly to facts. So I did it. Using public Wi-Fi and a burner email, I located Becky online. Ironically, she's a family law attorney herself. I sent her a short message explaining that her husband had been paying his ex $2,000 a month for 3 years under threat of exposure and reputational harm, that it was never disclosed, and attached the screenshots. I didn't name Amber, though it was obvious, and I signed off as a concerned party. Then I waited. Amber and I kept dating like nothing happened. We went to Aspen. I paid for everything. She seemed a little distracted, constantly checking her phone, but I said nothing. 3 weeks later, she called me hysterical. Becky had discovered the payments, confronted Jake, and immediately filed to reopen the original divorce for fraudulent financial disclosures. Jake's lawyer was now threatening to sue Amber for extortion. Amber was screaming. How did she even find those texts? I made sympathetic noises. Any idea how it got out? Jake swears he doesn't know. Maybe he left his banking app open or something. She had screenshots of everything. For the next several hours, she vented while I listened. When I went over to comfort her, she was pacing like a caged animal, cursing Becky and insisting the money was rightfully hers because of the cheating. I gently pointed out, but those payments were never court-ordered, and you did threaten him. She spun around, eyes wide. Wait, it was you. You sent her the messages. I didn't bother denying it. His wife and daughter had a right to know where their money was going. She lost it, screaming, cursing, hurling a wine glass at the wall, thankfully not at my head, and ordering me out forever. I left without a fight. The legal fallout dragged on for months. Becky moved to set aside parts of the original settlement because Jake had hidden a major ongoing liability. At the same time, Jake sued Amber civilly for extortion, and the judge agreed the threats went far beyond hardball negotiation, especially once Jake tried to stop paying and Amber doubled down. In the end, the court ruled that only the first year of payments could be considered truly voluntary. The following 2 years were made under clear duress, so Amber was ordered to return $40,000 of the $72,000 she'd collected. Her assets were frozen for a while, legal bills piled up, and she eventually had to sell the Mercedes and take out loans. Jake caught hell from Becky for the deception. She thought they were broke, had delayed starting a family because of money, all while he secretly bled their finances. They stayed together, but only after a brutal post-nup with total transparency clauses. His father, a religious patriarch, was apparently livid that Jake let himself be played for years. 9 months later, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. I believe you're the one who sent me proof of my husband's payments to his ex. I'm still furious with him for lying, but thank you for giving me the truth. Because of you, the money Amber has to repay is going into a college fund for our daughter. I don't know what your connection to Amber is, but get far away from her. She's been asking around about who snitched. Take care. Becky. She'd clearly pieced it together. Only one person Amber had bragged to recently could have done it. I never replied, but I changed my locks anyway. Nothing ever came of her threats. Repaying $40,000 plus lawyer fees kept her busy. Our mutual friends got the sanitized version. Irreconcilable differences over money and the discovery she was blackmailing her ex. Most understood. A couple thought I should have stayed out of it. 6 months later, I bumped into Amber at a cafe. I braced myself, but she asked calmly if we could talk. Over coffee, she admitted, what I did to Jake was wrong. I was so hurt and furious that I convinced myself I was entitled to that money forever. Losing in court was the slap in the face I needed. She'd sold her condo, moved into a modest apartment, and started therapy for resentment and entitlement issues. She still slipped sometimes, a comment here or there about men who step up, but she'd catch herself and wince. Old programming. Working on it. She didn't expect forgiveness or a second chance, and I didn't offer one. We parted on surprisingly decent terms. Word is Jake and Becky welcomed another baby and are solid. Becky impressed her father-in-law so much with how she handled everything that he hired her as corporate counsel for the construction company. Amber apparently dated a financial planner for a while who called her out whenever she started the real men pay talk. That relationship ended, but friends say she's far more self-aware now and has started her own consulting side business. I'm now living with a woman who Venmo requests me for her half of dinner before the check even arrives, and almost fought me when I tried to cover the whole thing on date 2. After Amber, the spreadsheet life feels like heaven. Moral of the story: if you're secretly extorting your ex and deceiving his new family, maybe don't wave the evidence under your current boyfriend's nose while bragging about it. Karma tends to show up eventually, sometimes wearing a family law attorney's business suit. Edit 2. Legal stuff. 2 separate attorney friends confirmed I broke no laws. The information was voluntarily shown to me. I didn't steal, hack, or trick anyone. Amber could theoretically try a civil suit for invasion of privacy or emotional distress, but her own extortion conviction would torpedo any credibility. I'm in the clear. Edit 3. For the curious, yes, some people really do try the emotional damages angle outside of court. Without a judge's order, those arrangements have no legal protection and can absolutely become extortion when threats are involved. In Colorado, hidden ongoing payments can justify reopening a divorce for fraud, especially when they affect a new spouse and child. Final update: a full year later, my girlfriend and I live together and run our household finances like a small corporation. I love it. Jake and Becky had their second kid and seem genuinely happy. I still get the occasional holiday card addressed to the truth teller. Amber paid off her debt, launched a small consulting firm, and from what I hear, is finally standing on her own 2 feet without demanding anyone else foot the bill. Sometimes you have to crash into rock bottom to realize you brought the shovel yourself. P.S. I've never confirmed to Becky that I was the sender. She knows, but we both enjoy the polite fiction. Lawyers appreciate deniability.